All right, guys, what's going on? Hope everybody's out there staying high speed and accomplishing their goals, whatever they may be. I apologize for the break in service. I know I haven't put any content out for about maybe 4 weeks now, but I've just been, be honest with you guys, I've just been extremely busy lately, and really I just haven't had a lot of time in between to be able to make a lot of the informational videos that I still have on deck for you guys. But don't worry, that doesn't mean I'm going anywhere. It just means sometimes a little break in service is to be expected. But that's neither here nor there. It doesn't really matter. What I really wanted to do today, since I had a little bit of time, was go ahead and let you guys know what the main differences between Airborne and Air Assault School is, and ultimately which one is harder. Being somebody who has been to both of the schools, this is one of the age-old questions that I seem to get all the time so far since I've been in the Army. And so I thought it'd be a good idea to talk to you guys about it here so I can answer this question to as many of you out there that are interested as possible. And so I'm going to try to keep all this structured as much as possible. I have a tendency to sort of drift off a little bit when I talk, but I'll do my best to structure it into some main topics for you guys so that it makes sense to you and you can clearly see the difference of challenge between the two schools, okay? So first of all, the main difference between the schools, one's really meant to be able to train you for one specific purpose, Airborne School, and that is to be able to jump from an aircraft safely and appropriately and land on a drop zone ready to fight and win America's battles. It's as simple as that. Air Assault School is training the soldier to be able to be certified to conduct sling load procedures, and that is rigging multiple pieces of equipment to be able to be ready to be loaded by an airframe safely and securely and transported, and also trains the soldier to be able to conduct air assault infiltration procedures safely and securely, whether it be through fast rope or rappelling techniques from an airframe, and land on the battlefield safely, securely, and to be able to fight and win in America's battles. So you can see the difference there. Airborne School is a lot more basic. You're trained to do one specific task at the individual level, whereas Air Assault School is going to train you for multiple tasks. And not only will you be able to understand and conduct those tasks, but you're going to be dependent upon by your unit to be able to do so appropriately and to standard. So already you can see that an airborne qualified soldier has that specific skill. They have that capability to conduct an airborne operation, jump and land on the battlefield safely and securely. They have that understanding. But an air assault qualified soldier should have the capability to conduct sling load operations, which are very technical, and to be able to understand the basics of how a air assault infiltration, a combat air assault infiltration mission would be conducted, and they should be able to safely and securely conduct that mission. So when you're looking at what the soldier should be expected to do by the end of each of one of the courses, obviously heights are involved for both of the courses. If you have a problem with heights, then both of these courses are going to be somewhat of a challenge for you, but not impossible. So with Airborne School, obviously the height issue is much more prominent. You're going to be jumping from a much higher altitude, whereas with air assault you don't even actually jump. You either slide down or rappel down from an airframe at a much lower altitude than as if you were parachuting from the sky. But I can tell you, as a person who isn't extremely confident with heights, that it is Air Assault School that seems to bring that fear up a little more to the surface than Airborne, only because in Airborne School you don't really focus on the height aspect of it. You just need to focus on jumping out the door. Okay, once you jump out the door, everything's downhill from here, literally. Okay, now talking about the length of the schools, Airborne School is 3 weeks long, and it's separated into 3 separate phases where you have ground week, tower week, and jump week, kind of set up in the old crawl, walk, and run methodology of Army training. Same concept. It's all focused on just getting you out the door and being able to land securely. The entire time you're really just focused on that first jump day where you're just safely and securely jumping out of the aircraft, controlling your descent, and landing safely on the ground. That's really what you're training to do for that entire 3 weeks. Now, Air Assault School is only 10 days long, but it has been known to be the hardest 10 days in the Army. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I've definitely had like a harder 10 days in my Army career besides Air Assault School. But I will say that the reason that they do say that is because they cram so many challenges physically and academically into those 10 days where it becomes a serious gut check for anybody that's going through the school. And it's broken up into different phases as well, but that's going to kind of depend on which school you go to, like where the location is. I think it's fair to say that every school will have a 0 day, which is pretty much like a quick selection day consisting of a smoke fest at the beginning, a PT test, and of course you'll have to complete the air assault obstacle course, which is just testing your ability to control ropes, control your fear, and be physically adept enough to conduct a air assault operation. And then it will be broken into academic week, which is all about learning about Army airframes that you'll be dealing with, the sling loads that you'll have to be rigging up, and also looking at HLZ operations and how they're run at the basic level. Then you'll move into sling load operations, where you'll actually get hands-on training and you'll actually be tested on your ability to appropriately conduct a sling load operation and get specific items ready for transport on a specific airframe. And you'll have to do that right to standard. And then finally, you'll move on to the rappel phase, which is really just, a few days of fun where you'll actually rappel from the tower, where you'll actually move your way up, crawl, walk, run, same thing, from rappelling from a platform, rappelling from a tower, and eventually rappelling from a moving aircraft, probably a UH-60. And also sprinkled throughout Air Assault School will be testing of your attention to detail, academic testing, which is the different tests where you'll be tested on your knowledge on the Army airframes and sling load operations. The sling load test itself is very difficult, but you'll get plenty of hands-on training for it. And also the 6-mile and 12-mile ruck march, and the 12-mile ruck march you'll have to complete within 6 hours or less. And that should be conducted on the very last day of Air Assault School. It'll be the last thing you do before graduation. So as you can see, I had a lot more to say about Air Assault School as far as the challenges go than I did about Airborne School. And that is really just because at Airborne School, there aren't really a whole lot of gates you have to get through. You just sort of have to take every day one at a time, follow the training that the AIs give to you, follow it successfully, and as long as you're listening, paying attention, and actually executing the training, you're going to progress throughout the school. There really isn't like a test phase. Your only test at Airborne School is going to be during jump week, and that's whether or not you exit the aircraft, okay? Because no matter what, I can promise you, once you exit the aircraft, you're going to land on the ground eventually. So if I'm thinking this correctly, there's only 2 tests at Airborne School, and that is the PT test on the very first day that you just have to get through, and whether or not you have the guts to jump out the door on the first jump during jump week. Looking back at my time at Airborne School, I don't remember ever being like super stressed out or feeling like I was ever going to fail at any time. I just remember going through the motions day to day. It kind of dragged out sometimes. We would get smoked for silly things sometimes, but every day was pretty easy. It wasn't super long, and I think the hardest part for me at Airborne School was one time during jump week. The weather wasn't great, and it took like 6 hours of us being harnessed up and waiting in the shed to actually jump. And I just had to take a piss so bad, and I had to hold it for like hours and hours and hours because the jump masters wouldn't let me go take a piss because they had already JNPI'd me. And honestly, I think that was the hardest part about Airborne School for me. And jumping out the door wasn't even an issue for me because I had to piss so bad. I couldn't wait to get out the door because I just needed to piss so bad. But in Air Assault School, I remember being stressed out almost every day because there was like always a test the next day, some sort of challenge that was expected to be overcome the next day in Air Assault School. If you want to know more details about Air Assault School specifically and the breakdown on what you can expect at the school, I have another video for that, and you can go check it out right here. Another big difference between the schools is where you'll end up after you go to the schools. Now, just because you go to Airborne School doesn't mean you're necessarily going to end up in an airborne unit, but I can tell you from my years of experience of being in the Army that if you're airborne qualified, it is more than likely that if you don't go right after the school to an airborne unit, that you will end up in an airborne unit at one point in your career. And once you're there, it's going to be hard to not be airborne anymore. Because there's always, for some reason, a shortage of airborne soldiers. And I guess that's just because a lot of people have a problem with jumping out of a perfectly good aircraft. I don't. Whereas Air Assault School is really meant for any soldier to gain the qualification. Doesn't mean you're going to end up in the 101st. I've never served in the 101st, but from what I've heard, Airborne School is, Savalosky Airborne School is really treated as like a gate for leaders in the 101st. It's something that you have to get through to be considered a successful soldier in the 101st. I think you guys know what I'm trying to say there. But anybody can go to Air Assault School, and it's just another qualification for a soldier to get. But both of the schools, I think, are really good for any soldier to pursue. I think you would get a lot of good training and a lot of good knowledge and a lot of good experience from both of the schools. Airborne School is going to be a lot more specific, as in you're really only training for one specific task. You're becoming certified to be able to conduct an airborne operation at the individual level. That's it. Which is cool, but it's just, that's really all it is. But with Air Assault School, I personally think you get a lot more out of the school, because not only are you being physically tested, but you're being tested on your ability to remain attentive to detail constantly. And you take a lot from that once you're done with the school. You gain a lot of insight and academic knowledge on different U.S. Army airframes and sling load operations. You get qualified to actually conduct sling load operations for the unit, and you have a basic understanding and the capability to conduct air assault operations for combat. So you get a lot more out of air assault in a lot shorter time. But I think after rolling up everything we talked about in this video, Air Assault School is definitely going to be considered a lot harder than Airborne School. I think Airborne School is something that any soldier can really just go do. And when it comes time for jump week, you just have to suck it up and jump out that door and make shit happen. And that's really going to be the biggest challenge of the school. Air Assault School is a lot different. You know, there's a lot more tests involved. You're going to have to get through 0 day. A lot of people fail out on 0 day because they're not physically prepared to be able to handle the smoke fest that ensues before you take the PT test. Then you got to take the PT test. Then you got to be able to conduct the obstacle course, which isn't the hardest Army obstacle course out there, but it's definitely challenging, especially when you're tired already. Then you have to conduct the academic gates, pass the tests. Sling load operations are no joke. They're extremely detail oriented with sling load operations, as they should be. And last but not least, the 12-mile ruck. After that 10 days of just getting smoked every day, you have to be able to conduct that 12-mile ruck to standard within 3 hours or less. And believe it or not, a lot of soldiers don't. Now, over the years, Airborne School doesn't have a very high attrition rate. I think most of the attrition happens during the PT test, and that's just because soldiers weren't ready to be able to pass a PT test. And then you might have like onesies and twosies that refuse to jump from the tower, or they refuse to jump from the aircraft during jump week, but that's not very often. Whereas at Air Assault School, last I checked, the attrition rate was about 60%, give or take. And most of that happens during sling load operations. So again, rolling it all up, I think you guys should strive to go to both of the schools. If you've already been airborne, go ahead and challenge yourself again and go to Air Assault School. If you've already been Air Assault, go to Airborne. If you haven't been to either one, go to both. All right. I think they're both really good schools to go to, and I think you should strive to become certified in both those things. And I think it's going to make you a better soldier and a better person as a whole to be able to get through those challenges, and you're just going to be better for it at the end. So that's my basic spiel on the difference of Airborne and Air Assault School. And which one is harder. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any insight of your own, or some questions or anything like that, go ahead and drop it in the comments for everybody to see. This channel is all about helping soldiers be successful in their career, so any information that's beneficial to the community, please, by all means, drop it in the comments. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my future videos. I'm working on a garage gym right now, which I should have completed within the next couple weeks. So we're going to be seeing a lot more physical fitness videos in the future. A big focus on ACFT training coming up. So again, don't forget to like and subscribe. Besides that, I don't have anything else for you, and I'll see you on the next one.